with all the news recently, after I've heard it all, I think I'm almost convinced at this point that we're going to have an extended bull run lasting 2 years or more. And if not an extended bull run, at least a bear market that's not nearly as bad. At least not for Bitcoin. And since Bitcoin controls the entire market, probably for not for all the other altcoins as well. What do I mean by that? Well, in the last video, I said we have this newest piece of news that Arizona is looking at proposals to add ETFs to its retirement portfolios. It's already passed the Senate. It's looking to pass the House. And if it passes the freaking House, it will actually advise retirement and pension funds to invest in Bitcoin. Now, Arizona is only one state, but this could definitely have a snowball effect on other states and even on the federal government. If enough states adopt it, the federal government might go ahead and adopt it, especially if those state funds are having higher rates of return than other funds. Because, people always want to get the most out of their retirement and pension funds, obviously. And if Arizona's are working better than other states, then other states' people are going to want those funds as well. And the people that have the federal funds are going to want those as well, because it could be a big snowball effect. And the retirement and pension funds could be the biggest glob of money in the world anywhere for these, because this is like billions and maybe even trillions of dollars if you're talking about federally, going to 401ks, going to pension funds. That's pretty much all federal employees. And that's, by the way, that's one of the reasons that federal employees work for a smaller wage than regular employees at private companies. I mean, they get better hours too, and they get better benefits, but they also get a pension fund sometimes, which most other companies don't actually get. So, there's a big reason why they make those sacrifices during their career so they can enjoy their life after their career even more. So we have that to work with right now. And it's really, really incredible how far Bitcoin has actually come. I didn't know if this was possible a couple of years ago, but now we're on the brink of it. And you know what? The federal pension funds and all this stuff, it's not going to come in all at once. It's going to be one state at a time. It's Arizona, then maybe New Mexico, then maybe California, Nevada, North Dakota, South Dakota, Virginia, Vermont. I mean, it doesn't have to go in that order. I'm just naming states off as they come along. But if one state is very successful with this, the other states will follow along. So it might be Arizona, late this year, early next year, and then mid next year, it might be another state. So it'll have a rolling effect that covers over several years. And every time a state comes in, that's a lot more money used to buy the Bitcoin. And like I said in the last video, this is one of the good things about the Bitcoin ETF, because the states might not be able to buy Bitcoin themselves, but they are able to buy the BlackRock ETF. And this also basically insulates Bitcoin against any tampering by the SEC, because if it's in these retirement and pension funds, they're not going to want to screw with it, because that's going to screw with a lot of people's retirement. So if you get these ETFs and they're actually bought by retirement and pension funds, the SEC and other government agencies have a huge incentive not to screw with it. So any fund that actually gets bought by pensions and retirements, that coin is most likely safe of harassment from the SEC. It's probably only going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum in the next few years. But I'm thinking it will actually expand, and just the amount of money pumping into Bitcoin and Ethereum should carry the entire market up with it. And that's one reason why we should get an extended run. Another reason is because of sovereign countries coming in. We've heard news, obviously we have El Salvador that is buying Bitcoin for their reserve. And El Salvador, if you guys don't know, has hit at a record 164 million in Bitcoin, as Bitcoin profits past 50 million. Now, that's not very much Bitcoin. That's basically a tenth or 1% of what MicroStrategy or BlackRock have, but they're up 30% on their investment, and other countries are going to start looking at it as well. And El Salvador obviously has it as legal tender. Taiwan's looking at it, even Brazil's sort of looking at it, and you'll get a lot of other countries in this bull run, especially after the ETF looking at it, because if BlackRock and Fidelity has an ETF, especially if American retirement funds start investing in Bitcoin, it'll be seen as legitimate. And like I said, this is a rollover effect. So like it's not only end of this year, it's like 2025, 2026. So we can get a continuous pump for several years in a row as more and more countries get in on the action because they don't want to be left out. I mean, a lot of countries are pretty desperate for money and they want some investment method to actually like improve their wealth. And Bitcoin could be their so-called golden ticket to doing so. So I wouldn't be surprised if more and more countries started getting on board and then like they start buying Bitcoin and that starts pumping Bitcoin even more. So sovereign countries is another big one that I didn't really see that much coming in, but it's coming in faster than I had expected. Of course, the third one has to do with that. It's the Middle East. Now, the Middle East wants investments. They can't rely on oil forever. Now, don't get me wrong, the oil's not about to run out. It's going to be there for a couple more decades, most likely. But eventually, just like Texas, the production is going to kind of slant. And the oil is going to be harder and harder to get as time goes on, as you have to dig deeper and deeper as the easy oil gets mined. So they need something else. Dubai is trying to hit like the tourism industry, but Qatar and others, they're looking at Bitcoin investment as a way. Remember that 500 billion sovereign wealth fund we're talking about? They're talking about investing some of that in Bitcoin. And I think Saudi Arabia is getting red-eyed too. They're like, ooh, we're itching to get some of that Bitcoin as well. Give us some of that action. So like even richer countries, I mean, the citizens of like Saudi Arabia and stuff, they might not be rich, but the kings, yes, the kings of Saudi Arabia, they're very, very rich. There's a lot of wealth in Saudi Arabia, and they might want to use that oil money to buy some crypto to preserve the wealth of their country. And in fact, I think that's what a lot of the Middle Eastern and oil countries are doing. Now, Israel can't actually do that because Israel doesn't have any oil. In fact, basically, I think one of the Jewish commentators was complaining. I remember a couple of years ago that we picked the only place in the Middle East that doesn't have any oil to settle in, and that became the Holy Land. So the Holy Land, when they're fighting over the Holy Land, they're not actually fighting over natural resources. They are actually fighting over religion because there's actually no natural resources there for them to fight over. It's actually pretty worthless besides the fact that it's the Holy Land. So they are really fighting over holiness in that land. They're not actually fighting over oil. There's absolutely no oil there. There's oil in all the areas surrounding Israel, but there's actually no oil in Israel. But, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, they all have oil. And guess what? With the ETS and everything, they might actually start to get a little faith in it. They might hate America, but they like the US dollar and they want more of the US dollar. They know, even though they hate America, the US dollar is better than whatever currency they can come up with. And Bitcoin's also better than whatever currency they can come up with. And Bitcoin is going up against the US dollar, so they might want to buy some Bitcoin to preserve or increase their wealth. And if the Middle Eastern countries do it, a lot of other countries are going to do it as well. And that could really, really boost up Bitcoin. And that's going to be a process that happens over several years and not 1 year as well. So it's a slow process, but it builds year upon year. And that's why the bull run may not actually stop. And of course, we have that law, I think, kicking in early 2025, which may actually ensure that the bull run goes through next year. And that rule would actually be that banks and institutions, I believe, and funds can, financial institutions can indeed start getting 1% to 3% of their funds or reserves in crypto or in Bitcoin, not really just in any crypto, but in Bitcoin. Now, right now, BlackRock's IBIT ETF and stuff, they are actually, BlackRock's IBIT and Fidelity, they're just buying for customers. The companies themselves don't have that many reserve funds in ETFs, and the company's reserve funds are pretty darn big. BlackRock is looking at investing their strategic investment opportunity fund in Bitcoin, but they have their own bank's reserves and they're probably in dollars or gold. They can convert some of that into Bitcoin, I believe, starting January of next year. And I bet even if they convert a little bit, a lot of big companies is still a lot of money. And that will happen throughout next year as well. So that might guarantee us a pump through late next year. And then, with all the country stuff coming in, with retirement and pension funds coming in, that's just rolling over year after year after year. That could carry on to 2025, 2026, 2027. It might carry carry us through the entire bear market until the next bull market. And then people are going to start saying that we don't have a 4-year cycle anymore because we didn't really have that big of a bear drop off. Now, altcoins may not fare as well because they don't have all the funding, but as long as Bitcoin stays high, altcoins should stay pretty high as well. So that should help the entire market. And that's why I'm thinking that we'll get an extended bull run, or maybe even no bear market last time, just kind of like a dull, like kind of even market where nothing happens for a while because there's selling pressure, but then there's buying pressure. And then we'll go straight into the next bull market, which would actually be a pretty cool thing. But then again, I guess the next bull market won't be as big as this one. It'll still be there, but it won't be as big as this one. But that means you got a big chance to make a lot of money in this bull market. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.